We're not totally throwing in the towel. We are still trying to work with him and, you know, make baby steps at this point rather than giant leaps. Part of this video that I wanted to talk about is some of the things that we have tried that have been somewhat effective over time. Because even though our son is an extremely picky eater and we have accepted that that is very much his nature, I still do very much believe that even though it is such hard work to do it, that it is important to continue pushing his comfort zone. Even though we tried the whole throwing him in head first, you know, pushing him out of his comfort zone with all things that he's totally uncomfortable with, that method didn't work. But we are now still trying to just nudge him, just doing little nudges out of his comfort zone, because I do think that that's important. Over time, I do think that that stuff will sink in, and so we're not totally throwing in the towel. We are still trying to work with him and, you know, make baby steps at this point rather than giant leaps. We're talking glacial speed here, people, but we are making progress. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of encouragement and some of the tips and tricks that have worked for us. And I can tell you, I mean, this may or may not work for your kid. This is just what has worked for us with a kid with the strongest will that I have ever seen. So first of all, what we have done from the very beginning is that we have only ever given him healthy foods. We just haven't had the option of unhealthy food. So the foods that he has built his comfort zones around are healthy foods because he's just never had unhealthy alternatives available ever. He's never tasted them. If you haven't seen my video about the 80-20 rule, I'll link that here. I'm all about moderation. I'm okay with even giving my kids sugar now and then. Like, I'm okay with that. But I still am very much a believer in just only offering healthy options from the beginning, and especially in those first, you know, in those first couple years when they're really establishing their tastes. I have even found this to be true with my steel-willed child. You know, like I said, when he was a baby, we just started out with a whole variety of flavors and everything was really healthy. Very little sugar to begin with, lots of whole real foods, lots of meats and vegetables. And that's like the only thing that I have made available to him since the very beginning. And this is what we're doing with our daughter now too. So I have found this to be, at least if your kid is going to be picky, if all they have ever experienced is healthy food, then they don't even know that the bad stuff exists. So I'm glad that we at least did that with him in the beginning, because at least the things that he wants to eat over and over and over and over every day are really healthy things. I do think that there is a benefit to doing that right from the beginning and only offering healthy options. This isn't me judging, this is just how we've done it, but I've never purchased chicken nuggets, you know, I've never gotten like SpaghettiOs, like that kind of thing. He's just never tasted them, and so therefore he has developed a comfort zone around only the things that we have. So that's the first tip, and that has been pretty successful. Specifically with my son, like, he is pretty good with meat and carby things. So thankfully we can get protein into him pretty easily. He went through a phase when he would eat beans, but lately he's kind of gone back and forth. Meat, we can get some sort of protein into him. We started him on like organic lunch meats and even like smoked salmon and peanut butter, you know, that kind of thing for protein since the beginning. And oh, and cheese, lots of dairy. He's very much into cheese, although he will only eat one kind of cheese, and that is Dubliner cheese. So thankfully he is pretty good about that, and surprisingly he likes nuts too, so we can get protein in him with nuts too. So that's, you know, there are a few surprising things that he likes that we can work with, and grains as well. Like I said, we have only given him whole grains and mostly sprouted. We get like whole grain crackers, those aren't sprouted, but they're whole grain and organic, and he'll have like whole wheat sprouted Dave's Killer bread, and that's all he's ever had, and so that's what he's used to. He'll eat like whole wheat tortillas because that's all we've ever given him. Our staple go-to foods are quesadillas that I make with whole wheat tortillas and Dubliner cheese, because that's the only cheese he will eat. Grilled cheese, so I use like the whole wheat sprouted Dave's Killer bread with the Dubliner cheese on it. He will eat lunch meat, so I'll often offer that up, or even just cut the Dubliner cheese up in pieces. He actually likes salmon, surprisingly. He won't eat any other kind of fish, but he likes salmon. So we get the salmon burgers from Costco. He will eat those. He went through a phase when he would eat fresh salmon, but lately that's been out the window too. He won't eat that anymore. There are those core groups of like solid foods that he will eat. Those are basically the sources of protein that he eats over and over and over and over. But at least they're healthy sources, right? And then in terms of fresh things, I've told you this has been the biggest struggle of all, is trying to get fresh fruits and vegetables into the kid. Like, he will not. We're pretty sure that he has some texture issues going on. I've gone back and forth about, you know, whether it's my fault that I only gave him purees in the beginning, because now he only wants pureed things. But I also think that it's partly just him having texture issues, and there's not much I can do about that. The kid just likes mushy things. So the solution that we have for getting fresh fruits and vegetables in him is this. Because we started him out on pureed things, and that's just the only texture that he likes in terms of like sweet things and fresh things, we have decided to just use that in our advantage. So for breakfast in the morning, we often make what we call mush. We did this since he was a baby, but now he just feeds it to himself. We just mash a banana and put in some yogurt and whatever fresh fruit is in season or out in the garden or whatever, and we mash that into his mush as well and just give it to him in a bowl and a spoon, and he feeds it to himself. So that has been one of our solutions for getting fresh things into him. And then the biggest thing is green smoothies. That has been our lifesaver, because with his texture issues and only wanting pureed things for fresh things, we can put everything in a smoothie. Like, that has so been our saving grace. We do smoothies that are like half vegetable, all sorts of greens, cucumbers, carrots, like all sorts of stuff. And then we put in bananas, apples, like whatever fruit we have available. I actually made a video about how we make our green smoothies, and I will put that here. And I usually make a huge batch of that, like, you know, 1 to 3 times a week, and just have a big batch that lasts for several days. And he will take that. So I give that to him in his little sippy cup with a straw. Sophie loves it too. So truly, like, I can sneak anything fresh into his smoothie, and it is awesome. And we also get protein in him through that too. We make homemade kefir, which is like chock full of probiotics. We put that in there. We put in yogurt. We put in sometimes coconut milk for the good fats. We use raw milk, so I put raw milk in sometimes. I also use collagen peptides as an extra protein source. I'm assuming if you watch me, you know who Mama Natural is. She is like the YouTube mama that I look up to the most. She's amazing. But she has talked a lot about this in her videos, is that she uses the Vital Proteins, and it's like a powder. It's kind of like gelatin, but it's soluble in cold water. And so anyway, that's the difference between gelatin and collagen peptides. So we put that in the smoothies. I put in chia seeds. I just pack in all these superfoods, greens, all of that stuff into his smoothies. And he, most of the time, sometimes he goes on smoothie strikes too even, but most of the time we can get a green smoothie into him. So for us, with the kinds of texture issues that he has, that has really been an amazing solution for getting fresh stuff into him. And when I'm feeling lazy, I still give him the little like baby food pouches. They're even marketed to older kids now. They're called snack pouches now. They even make them for adults now, but it's all the same thing. I mean, it's just like the socially acceptable way for adults and older children to eat baby food, right? It's just purees. And so when we're out and about, or if I'm feeling really lazy on any given day and I need to get something, some sort of fruit or vegetable into him, I'll sometimes give him a pouch too. So that has been our solution for the fresh stuff. And so like I said, with our son, he is very, very much into his comfort zone, and he has a very hard time getting out of his comfort zone. And I mean, I think that's true to some extent with all toddlers, but with our little Alex, it is, I mean, it's pretty rigid with him. So what I've learned about him is that in order to get him out of his comfort zone, he needs gradual nudging. Very gradual. There's none of this immersion throwing him into it, because then he just shuts down. He will throw a full-blown tantrum if you try and do that, getting him out of his comfort zone. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. But we have made tiny little strides with gradually pushing him a little bit. And the other interesting thing is sometimes he'll go on like a smoothie strike, or you know, he won't eat salmon or something that we know that he usually likes and will normally eat. And some of the other techniques, you know, that I mentioned before that people have told us to try, they work for getting him out of his strike for food that we know he likes. So for example, you know, if he won't have his breakfast mush, which has been like this week, it's been an issue this week. He doesn't want to eat his mush at breakfast. And sometimes he doesn't want to eat it for lunch either. We'll say like, okay, buddy, you're not going to have any more breakfast until you have your mush first. And then he just won't eat it, and he just won't have breakfast. And then by the time lunch rolls around, he is starving. And I say, okay, well, I still have your mush here, and you can't get any of your lunch. And I'll make something he really likes for lunch, like grilled cheese. And he really wants it, and he's really hungry. So that's often enough to push him over, to get him over his little strike over something that he normally likes, like his mush. So that's exactly what happened today. He barely ate breakfast, but then I said, well, if you want your grilled cheese for lunch today, buddy, you gotta eat your mush. And so he finally did. Another technique I've noticed that works for him is really just not pushing. The harder he's resisting, I find that this technique works the best. And this is also for things that he is on a strike for that he would normally eat. I sometimes find that just ignoring him is the best way. Like if I have to leave the table even to like go work on something in the kitchen, because when I'm like right there trying to push him and prod him, he just resists even more. And so when I ignore him, then I'll see him like, you know, like picking up the spoon and looking at it and examining it real close. I mean, oftentimes the resistance around like his mush, for example, is that there's a new kind of fruit in it or something, or the color is a little different than it was last week. And so if he's just left alone to examine it himself, I'll even see him like stick his tongue out and just taste it just a little bit, and then he realizes that he likes it, and then he will eat it. And then once he's taken a few bites, then I acknowledge that he's done it, and I'll say, oh, awesome, buddy, high five, you tried a few bites. And then he's all proud that I'm proud of him, and then he'll eat the rest of it. But it's just getting over that initial hump sometimes. So the last technique is that we just continue to put things that we are eating on his plate, fresh things, the dinners that I make, that kind of thing. I just put a little bit of it on his plate, and initially he would throw it. And so we have started having consequences around that, obviously. He now knows that he goes to his room if he throws it, and I warn him, like, I'm putting this on your plate, and if you throw it, you're going to your room. And to him, that's like the worst consequence ever. Like, I'll talk about discipline another time, but for him, that is the most effective thing that speaks to him. Like, he really doesn't like that. And so we have gotten him to stop throwing his food and throwing his plate. So we're in a good place there. The purpose of this is just to continue to expose him in hopes that over time, even though he won't even touch it, he won't even acknowledge it, like, we're hoping that just over time he's getting used to being presented with different things. And maybe one day, I mean, maybe it's when he's 10, it might be a long way down the road, but we're just trying to plant seeds now. There are a lot of variety of foods that exist out there, and that it's important to try new things, even if he's not doing it, that it's at least on his plate, and he's accepting that it's on his plate. So that's just kind of been a technique that we're using just for planting seeds, so to speak. So anyway, those are all of the tips that I have got that we have found to be effective with an extremely strong-willed picky eater. So hopefully some of those things will be helpful for you. I know that what works for us might not work for you. I know different kids are picky about different kinds of textures, different kinds of foods, but that's what has worked with our son. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. Now, I ask in the comments to please keep it nice, because I know that there are still lots of people out there who have judgments about picky eating, and I used to be one of them. All I request is that you be respectful in the comments and the suggestions that you made. But if you are somebody who has had this same struggle with an extremely picky child, do leave a comment below and let me know what has worked for you. I'm definitely open to learning new ideas and trying new things. Definitely start that conversation below. I think that's a really good conversation to have. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video today, and if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe so that you can get a notification every time I put out a new video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.